everybody, and welcome to this episode of Hank's Corner. I'm Hank Jr., part of Hank Jr. Productions, where I'm documenting life's moments through photography, videography, and now podcasting. And tonight, as always, I have a special guest. Today, I have a singer, songwriter, and producer. The album she recently had came out in February called Whiskey History, and she's opened up for such artists as Aaron Tippett, which is one of my favorites, and Bucky Covington. So please welcome to the podcast, Sarah Harralson. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful tonight. We did talk a little bit off air. I'm having a little bit of issues on my side, but aside from that, it's great to be able to finally get a chance to talk with you. So where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from Nashville today, which you said you visited recently.
Yes, I was just out there in Nashville for a few days. Got to do some photo shoots, got to see some people playing at the different bars. So had a great time. So how long have you been in Nashville now?
I'm almost 9 years into being in Nashville, so for quite a while, I've seen so many changes in Nashville. And right when I was 18, I moved to come to Nashville and go to Belmont. So definitely have been here for a while.
And so do you plan on making that your permanent home, or is that, kind of just for now and we'll see what the future brings?
I do, and I'm originally from Knoxville,
Mhm.
so it wasn't like a far move for me and like easy drive to see family when I want. So it's definitely like close to what I originally call home. And then, like, since I've moved here, Nashville has always just felt like the right home and the perfect fit for me. So I can definitely like see myself staying here in the future. I love it.
Okay, and you mentioned you've been out there since you started college over in Belmont. But what initially, and obviously the music, but what else may have attracted you to Nashville? Because there's so many things that I go through, and I'm like, hey, I'm ready to go back. So what attracted you to Nashville?
It was definitely the music, but at the time when I was, getting ready to move there to go to college, I didn't really think of Nashville as an option at first. I knew I wanted to pursue music and go to college for music somewhere. And that was back in 2013 where Nashville was, starting to really boom, but it wasn't like a crazy influx of musicians like it is now. So it was definitely like one option on the table with other options. But then when I went to Nashville, saw Belmont, saw the campus, heard the music, like just seeing musicians play everywhere and like the whole community and everyone's so friendly. That's what I really loved about it too.
Yeah, and I will second that because I think that's probably the reason why I like going to Nashville so much. I mean, you got places like L.A. and New York, and they're good for music and Broadway and all kinds of stuff like that. And not to knock those towns any, but I do feel that Nashville is really friendly as far as it does seem like a family when I go back, and it's kind of like the bars Cheers where everybody knows your name. So
Right.
it's not just me then.
Right. And even as you see Nashville grow and it's becoming like a big city like LA, I love how it still feels like a community and everyone's friendly and everyone wants to help each other achieve their dreams. So I love how it's staying in that sense of community while it's growing.
Yeah, definitely. And so you've been having a lot of success there in Nashville. Your most recent album we talked about at the beginning was Whiskey History. That came out in February. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been working on that for a few years. Put a Rock on This Rolling Stone was the first single off of that album. And I recorded that in 2020 and it was done in February 2020. And then, of course, COVID hit. So I was like, I might wait a while to put it out. So I waited until that summer to put it out. And at that time, I knew I wanted that song to go on a future project. I had a handful of songs in mind that, I wanted to release at some point. So some of the songs on the album were already written and I wanted to record or was in the process of recording. And then along the way, I wrote some other songs that I really fell in love with, like Waste of Rain, and then Whiskey History I wrote in 2021. I'm like, I fell in love with that song and knew it could be a good album title. So I decided I wanted to take all of the songs I was recording already or released and the handful of songs that I loved and put it to an album and name it Whiskey History. And at first I was a little conflicted because I already have an EP called Watered Down Whiskey. I was like, should I do another whiskey title? And then I'm such a whiskey person, so I'm like, yeah, I gotta do it.
And so you mentioned that. What kind of whiskey do you like? What's your favorite one to go to?
More of a bourbon, Woodford Reserve. It's my favorite. Of course, it's a lot of people's favorites. And then you can't go wrong with Gentleman's Jack.
Okay. And so I haven't really been a big whiskey drinker over the years. It's mostly, I have a drink of beer and that sort of thing. But lately, I've been doing the peanut butter whiskey. And I don't know if that's
Yes.
just something that's just, picking up right now. But I noticed that all the bars seem to have it. And, I'm definitely enjoying that.
I do. I love peanut butter whiskey, and it's just a good like sipping whiskey if you don't want something too strong and you want a little sweet in it. It's always a good choice.
Definitely. And, you did mention that, some of your songs and albums seem to have, a drinking theme, whether it's whiskey history, bottom of the glass, Nashville needs a drink. You got a bunch of them, but that's okay because it works for you. And it just kind of, seems like a little bit of a theme, but it definitely works for you.
Yeah, there's definitely some like drinking themes in my songs, and a lot of them, when you see like titles that have drinks in them, it usually kind of relates or is an analogy to a relationship. So I usually like try to tie in the drinking into a relationship somehow. And then, of course, it's Nashville country music. Everyone drinks here, and all the country artists sing about drinking. So that's definitely has inspired me to write those drinking songs too.
And one of the things, though, about whiskey history, though, you know the how normally whiskey songs or drinking songs go, but whiskey history has a little bit of a twist to it. And tell us a little bit about the song itself.
Yeah, so when people see the title, they may think, oh, is it just about like the history of whiskey or whatever? But it's actually like a parallel to a relationship. And I have had the title Whiskey History in my phone for a while. And I was writing with my co writer, Bill DeLuigi, one night. And I was like, I kind of want to tie this into a relationship, but I'm not sure how. And he kind of came up with the approach where, oh, well, what if it's about this girl who, when she was alone, when she was single, she was going to the bar a lot or getting just tired of like going out by herself. And then when she found that right person, kind of settled her down and like took her away from the bars and made her forget all about her whiskey history. And I loved that idea and approach because it's so relatable to me. So it's definitely more of a love song.
Yeah, definitely. And would you mind playing that song here on Hank's Corner today?
Yes, I would love to. All right, so this is Whiskey History. There's nothing quite as cold as the neon. When the crowd's gone, that last drink starts to fade. You found me in the smoke when I was so lost, and I was way off what I thought you were gonna say. You asked me if I came here alone. All you wanted was the chance to walk me home from the downtown rodeo. Strangers' arms and swinging doors. Used to let old Jim Beam run the show till my head and heart were sore.
Welcome back to Hank's Corner. I'm Hank Jr., and that was Sarah Harrelson singing her song Whiskey History. And that actually came out right before, Valentine's Day. So it was, like you said, a different kind, but it was definitely a good song to come out for lovers right before then.
It did, yeah. I put it out right before Valentine's Day with intent on doing that because I knew it was more of a love song. And then I had an animated music video made for it that came out on Valentine's Day. I thought about doing an actual like music video, but I'm like, it might be cute just to do like an animated one instead. So you can go on my YouTube page, watch the animated music video of Whiskey History, and there's two characters in it, and one you might notice looks like me. I made the main character based off me, and then the love interest, I actually had them like draw up a picture of my boyfriend, so I kind of snuck up a little animated character of him in there. So little innuendo for that this Valentine's Day.
Yeah, so definitely, if you have not seen that, go back and watch that on her YouTube channel. But so you're as a Knoxville native growing up, when did you start getting the music bug? Because I know that you do have a family influence that kind of puts you in that direction.
Yes, I got it at a very young age, and I was surrounded by music in my family. My granddad was a bluegrass musician in Knoxville, so I was always around him playing bluegrass and playing his accordion. My mom loved music. She loved, rock, pop, like everything, and my dad loved country. So I was around all sorts of genres of music, and my siblings are much older than me, so when I was growing up, they were kind of already out of the house when I was growing up, and so I was kind of like a quiet child because I kind of felt like an only child at times, and I didn't really know how to express my feelings. And then, like around the age of 10, I kind of picked up on songwriting myself, and writing songs was just kind of a gateway for me to express my emotions and my feelings. So I picked it up at a young age. And then when my granddad passed when I was a young teenager, I got his accordion. And I had already been playing piano, and then I taught myself guitar, and just kind of fell in love with writing country music. And that's when I kind of knew that I wanted to explore elsewhere outside of Knoxville to pursue music.
Yeah, and so you said that you started writing around 10, and one of your first songs you wrote about your mother, and so is that kind of like where a lot of your songwriting comes from personal experiences?
Yeah, definitely a lot of personal experiences, and it's very therapeutic for me to write songs about something that's relatable to me and something I've gone through, and maybe it's something universal that other people have gone through too. But I think, that's definitely what country music is all about, is sharing personal stories with others, that, just relatable stories. And I think that's why I fell so in love with country music, because I was already wanting to share some of my own stories and personal experiences.
Yeah, and that's a common thing that a lot of people say, why they like country music, because it is that storytelling genre. And you can do it in other ones, but it just has more effect, I think, with the country music.
Right. And I love pop music, and I love writing pop music too, because I love melodies, but it's definitely more melody driven. It's not really about personal experiences as it is about the melodies. And country music, it's definitely more about the lyrics.
Right. And you mentioned some of the other genres because you do have like other influences such as Jewel and Alanis Morissette that you kind of let it creep into your music, even though it's your music's a little bit more country, a little bit more folk. Who else inspired you besides those two?
Definitely Brandy Clark as a songwriter. I just love how she's a little folksy herself and a little bit different from other females in country. And she's such a great storyteller. So she always inspires me to write good stories and such like great imagery in my lyrics as she does in hers.
Okay. And so eventually you decided, hey, we're going to make the move to Belmont University. Tell me about those days there.
Yeah, so first year there, it was very intimidating just because I realized how talented people in Nashville are. And I was like, wow, I have a lot to learn, and I really have to like figure out my own craft and who I am in music. And I started doing a lot of co writing when I moved to Nashville, and that's how I became better at writing country music. I came better at my craft, and even just like playing out the first few shows in Nashville was so scary because I'm like, everyone's so much more talented here than, back at home. And so I would like shake getting up on stage my first few shows in Nashville. So it took a while to get really comfortable doing it. So after those first few years, I felt like I had learned a lot. I was, learning my craft a little bit more, who I am as an artist. But yeah, I think anyone who moves to Nashville can definitely agree that the first few years can be pretty scary.
Yeah, definitely. And that's just college in general. A lot
Yeah.
of people go away to college and some of them they actually come back home to finish it because it is a whole different experience. But was there anybody there that kind of took you under your wing or took you under their wing, maybe mentored you to kind of help you out during those years?
Yeah, I definitely had like a lot of great people at Belmont who mentored me, but I also made like so many connections outside of Belmont that helped me. Like for instance, in 2015, that was about 2 years in to my time in Nashville. I met Scotty Schultz, who was drumming for Shooter Jennings, and he was opening up his own publishing company. And listened to my song "Watered Down Whiskey" and another song, and he decided he wanted to do a 3-song publishing deal with me. So that was my first like deal in Nashville. So it was pretty exciting, but I was also very nervous about it. But he was great at mentoring me, like in the studio. Like that was definitely the most studio time I had since moving there. So he got me more comfortable in the studio and encouraged me. And then he actually recorded my song Radio Static on my Watered Down Whiskey EP. And I actually wrote that song. I wrote it with Johnny Garcia, Justin Lilly, and Brian Carper. And I was friends with Justin at that time. And one night he asked if I wanted to write with him and a couple other guys. And Johnny Garcia, who actually plays guitar for Garth and Trisha. So I was like, yeah, I'll definitely join the co-write. And, I was kind of like nervous to write with him at first. And so we wrote Radio Static that night. Didn't really hear from him until a few years down the road in 2018 when I was recording the Watered Down Whiskey EP with Scotty. Ran into Johnny Garcia at an event on the row, and I said, "Oh, hey, I'm actually recording Radio Static that we wrote a few years ago." And he said, "I would love to track electric guitar on it if you haven't already tracked lead guitar on it." And I said, "That would be wonderful." And through that, we just started writing again, and he became a wonderful mentor for me. Had me play a few showcases for him, and at that time, I was releasing an EP as an artist, and I knew I wanted to be as a songwriter. I knew I wanted to be a songwriter, release my own music at least, but I wasn't sure about being an artist at that time because I was comparing myself to other girls in Nashville. I'm like, well, I don't know if I can compete against them. And I was just having a lot of doubts about myself. So I played one of his showcases, and after it, Johnny said to me, if you don't go for the dream of being an artist, you're making a huge mistake. And that was something that really that I really took to heart. I'm like, well, if this person can believe in me, then, I gotta go for it. I gotta stop doubting myself and just go for what I want to do. And so just like him and Scotty were definitely great mentors that they just encouraged me. They believed in me. They just helped me become more confident and comfortable with my craft too.
Yeah, and Johnny Garcia is a great guitarist, and I could see why you would be a little bit nervous, and especially because I think he was expecting a different Sarah to show up at his door the very
Yes.
first day that you met, and I still don't know which Sarah that is, but we don't have to name names, but thank God for people like Johnny and Scotty who are willing to take the time to mentor people, and that's great. So right now, we're going to go ahead and play a video by you, Put a Rock on This Rolling Stone. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more of what you learned from Belmont.
Sounds great.
Young and restless, all about the chase. Never had a tie to anyone or any place. Too much Jameson, too many Marble Lights. Always finding the wrong love every night. I'm ready for you, I'm ready for you. Put a rock on this rolling stone. Slow me down and take me home. 'Cause you've got a hold on me. If you wanna tame this gypsy soul, take me away from the neon smoke. Baby, won't you put a rock on this rolling stone? I see an open road, you've got a Trans Am. Baby, if you're sold, let's take a ride against the wind. Chase those headlights, no need to hit the brakes. You wanna settle down, I won't hesitate. Put a rock on this rolling stone. Slow me down and take me home. 'Cause you've got a hold on me. If you wanna tame this gypsy soul, take me away from the neon smoke. Baby, won't you put a rock on this rolling stone? Put a rock on this rolling stone. Slow me down and take me home. 'Cause you've got a hold on me. I don't wanna roll on my own, so slow me down and take me home. 'Cause you've got a hold on me. If you wanna tame this gypsy soul, take me away from the neon smoke. Baby, won't you put a rock on this rolling stone? This rolling stone. This rolling stone.
Welcome back to Hank's Corner. I'm Hank Jr., and once again, I'm here with Sarah Harrelson, and you just saw the video for Put a Rock on This Rolling Stone, one of the songs that I really like, and uh, I want to hear the backstory about that real quick, and then I want to go into a little bit more about your what you learned from Belmont. So give me a little bit of the backstory about that song.
Yeah, so Put a Rock on This Rolling Stone, I wrote with Johnny Garcia a few years back. And I mentioned before we recorded that in 2020, but when we were writing that, I think it was 2018. And I think Johnny actually had the idea of the title, Put a Rock on This Rolling Stone. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool title and concept. And we approached it as, it's about this girl who's she's kind of has a gypsy soul, but she's willing to settle down if she meets the right person. And I definitely could relate to that. at that time because I felt I was a free spirit, like a gypsy soul. But, like, oh, if I meet the right person, I'm willing to settle down. So it was definitely one of those where another one of those personal experiences where I felt like I could relate to it. I felt like a lot of other women could relate to it as well. So I definitely knew I wanted to record that as a single and put it out.
Okay, I always love hearing the backstories of the songs. And so one of the things that kind of sets you apart from other people is not only are you a singer, a songwriter, but you are a producer and you have a lot of business sense, which you learned, I guess, a lot of that from the university, correct?
I did. Yeah, my major was music business, so I had to take a lot of business classes, and then my minor was in production, so I learned a lot about audio engineering and, got to record in the studios and everything. So I learned a lot about producing too.
Okay. Was there anything in particular that you were learning that you were just kind of blown away that you didn't realize, that was all entailed within the music industry?
It was definitely intimidating taking the audio classes. Obviously, like a lot of the music business classes, I'm like, oh, I didn't know there was all of these areas and just so many different facets of the music industry other than, creating the song. Like there's so many uh, different business sides that have to go into the music process. So that definitely kind of surprised me my first year at Belmont, but I was definitely the most intimidated taking some of the audio classes. Like I signed up for like audio engineering one, and it was like all these audio engineer majors, and then me, and I was like, it was like me and one other girl in the class, and then it was all guys in it, and it was very hands-on, working with these huge console boards in the studios, and some of them were from like the 70s or like even the 60s, and some of them like the knobs you had to turn a certain way, or they were just very confusing, like some of the consoles you wouldn't really use anymore, so it was very intimidating learning on those. I'm like, okay, I have to like study extra hard at this because these guys in this class are so smart, and I don't want them to think I'm just some dumb girl who doesn't like know what I'm doing or anything. So I definitely spent a lot of long nights like learning about, engineering and producing and the different consoles and everything. So that was hard, but when I look back at it now, I am so thankful I, took those classes because it has helped me so much for just recording and producing my own music now.
Right. And the reason why I asked that is because, I'm kind of fairly new to the music industry. I mean, that's not where my career path is, but, the photography and video stuff has brought me there, and that's how I got into podcasting. But as I'm, listening to you and other interviews or listening to other people, there's just so much that I didn't really know that went into the music industry. And a lot has changed even in the time that you were there at Belmont. And you said you've been in Nashville for a few years. What has kind of changed with, like, say, like the business side and the marketing and all that? What are some of the big changes you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, as far as marketing, it's so heavy on social media now. And I was actually mentoring a Belmont student a few months ago, and she was like, yeah, my major is like social media management. I'm like, that wasn't even an option when I was there. I'm like, that's crazy that there's like majors around in college around social media now. So, yeah, marketing is so heavy with like social media and even just like TikTok now and influencers. And so a lot of online and digital and NFTs, like it's definitely so much more advanced with technology, even just compared to a few years ago. And also, with like Spotify and streaming, like as we evolve with the way we listen to music, like the business side of it's going to change too. And with that, the royalties are changing too. So, yeah, how we listen to music and where we get it from is constantly changing the business side of things.
Right. And you mentioned streaming, and that's one of the things that I didn't realize, and I'm glad that artists are putting it out, is that you, as artists, don't make very much from streaming. It's a very, very small percentage. So tell us, what is the way that, artists can make money? Is it something that, the fans should be tipping? Should they, be buying CDs, which we don't really have CDs anymore, but, buying it online or buying merchandise? How is the best way that an artist can be successful?
Yeah, so if you're just a writer, like songwriting royalties itself are so low, like less than a cent per stream. So it's hard to get signed now as a writer unless you're also a singer or an artist or do something else, because you're going to make so little as just a writer nowadays as compared to being like an artist and a writer. But yeah, just the streaming royalties in general are so low. So as artists, we rely heavily on sync income from like movies and TV, and definitely live performances, money from shows and merch, and yeah, even like getting tips on like online performances. So we definitely have to make up for it in other ways since it's so hard to get it from streaming now.
Okay, so fans out there, keep that in mind, when they do have that tip bucket out or they have the merchandise. That's a great way to support the artists that you like. And I appreciate you telling me, those kind of things. So we're going to go ahead and play another video by you, Love on Lease. And when we come back, we'll do a little bit more of the fun stuff. All right.
Sounds good.
I wanted it for sale, but time, oh time sure tells. It's not what I thought it would be. I should have got the hat warranty. There was never a guarantee that I would get what I wanted this to be. I just paid more for what I didn't need, so I'll return what I can't keep. 'Cause your love is on lease. You didn't want long term. Let's see where this goes. Yeah, it won't hurt. I wanted more than that 6-month contract, but I still signed it, hoping this would last. There was never a guarantee that I would get what I wanted this to be. I just paid more for what I didn't need, so I'll return what I can't keep. 'Cause your love is on lease. If I can't own it, I don't want it. If I can't own it, I don't want it. If I can't own it, I don't want it back. Oh no. There was never a guarantee I would get what I wanted this to be. I just paid more for what I didn't need, so I'll return what I can't keep. 'Cause your love is on lease. Yeah, your love's on lease.
And that was Love on Lease by Sarah Harralson here on Hank's Corner. I'm Hank Jr. So let's, we heard a little bit about, the music side of you. Let's, hear a little bit more about you personally. So when you're not playing music, I know you like hiking and traveling. So tell me some of the places that, you like to go and hike and travel, and maybe some of the places you would like to that you haven't been yet.
Yes, I absolutely love traveling. The other month, I went to Portland, Oregon for just a weekend trip, and it was so lovely up there. You have the mountains, the beach around you, and the air just smells so fresh out there. So I love, hiking and being outdoors. And then this week, I'm running the 10K and the Rock and Roll Marathon in Nashville. So I've been kind of doing a lot of more running lately too. So I definitely love, being outdoors and exercising and exploring new places. I'm playing in Key West for the Key West Songwriters Festival next month. I've been to Florida, but I haven't been to Key West, so I'm excited to go there and explore. And definitely soon, I want to play some shows out of the country and explore places out of the country that I've never been to.
Okay. And so on these road trips, maybe that you're taking, what are some of the songs that you're listening to on these drives?
Yeah, so sometimes I fly and I'll have like a playlist too, but yeah, I definitely love listening to new music that's been released when I'm going on a long drive because I feel like I always have like a whole big playlist of songs that just like builds up and I get to listen to some of it in the gym, but I just like never have time until I go on a road trip. So I'll listen to new releases from different country artists or whoever's put out new music, and then sometimes I'll just turn on to some old albums like that I love, like old country albums or rock and roll albums, and then sometimes I like turn on podcast when I need just like a minute away from music. Like sometimes I'll listen to like the true crime podcast.
Okay. And as far as like TV, is that something similar that you like watching the true crime television?
I do like so I guess like the thing about Pam is one that I watched recently for true crime, and I think that show is based off a podcast too.
And as far as food, what are some of your favorite foods that you just love to eat, or whenever you get a chance to maybe even go somewhere different that you say I got to try that?
Yes, I love Mexican food. There's a lot of good Mexican restaurants in Nashville. And I also love seafood, which you can't really find in Nashville. So if I'm ever on the coast, I love getting some seafood.
Okay, and you mentioned Mexican, so my home state is Texas. I lived most of my life in South Texas, and so you'll have to send me some spots there in Nashville for the Mexican restaurants because I haven't seen them yet, but I would love to find them.
Yeah, I'm sure you're like into Tex-Mex and
Oh yeah,
yeah.
and so if you given the chance could perform with one singer, who would that be?
It would probably be Natalie Maines from The Chicks.
Okay, and why her?
I've always looked up to her as an influence. I love her voice and just her music in general. So she is always someone who I always answer that I would love to perform with.
Okay. Well, that's awesome to get to know a little bit about the personal side of you. And you have one more song before we go that you would like to sing?
Yes, I'm going to perform Bottom of the Glass off of my new album, Whiskey History. One more sip, then I'm done. Last one should have been the last one. Missed calls all night. I ain't giving in this time. I'll drink this till it's dry. Then I'm leaving you behind at the bottom of the glass. Sure came pretty fast. Got me thinking I'm done thinking about going back. The way it's gone.
rather be sober than wanting more. I tried to make this last, but this boy has run its path to the bottom of the glass. Sure came pretty fast, got me thinking. I'm done thinking about going back. The way it's going down, I can take another round of this breakup. I'm done breaking over you right now. One more sip, and just like that, we're at the bottom of the glass. And I'm switching to something new, something that won't bring me back to you, to the bottom of the glass, the bottom of the glass, the bottom of the glass. Sure came pretty fast, got me thinking. I'm done thinking about going back. The way it's going down, I can take another round of this breakup. I'm done breaking over you right now. One more sip, and just like that, we're at the bottom of the glass, the bottom of the glass, the bottom of the glass.
And just like that, we're at the end of our show. And, I could go on and talk with you forever and listen to your music, but we do have to close. But so you mentioned Key West is where you're going to be. And where can people also see you in the near future?
Yeah, so I always have some local shows coming up in Nashville, so you can check my website, sarahharralson.com, under the shows tab. I always list my upcoming shows, and I'm always playing at the Hutton Hotel in Nashville too. So stay tuned for more shows to be added and more locations in the future too.
All right. So everybody make sure that you go out there and follow Sarah on social media. Like she said, her website is sarahharralson.com. It's down here below. And Sarah, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I hope to get to see you play. But in the meantime, if you ever want to be a guest here on Hank's Corner, you're more than welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.